Okay. Tell me then about World Cup, just because you brought that up, and World Cup was a very huge thing, 2018.
2018. So 2018, we had this thing of, no, first, let me go to 2017. So in 2017, because after working 2015, 2016, and 2017 itself, I started feeling the strain of work. But more importantly, that 2017 December, I was turning 40. Turning 40 just came with its own mindset. In terms of, at Coke, there are some things that we had been talking about for a very long time. Actually, it's a policy at Coke where they really push for work-life balance. Towards the sometime, maybe third quarter of 2017, we started discussing something at Coke called Work That Matters. Because of the very many different functions at Coke, you'd find that maybe sometimes there's overlap of some things that you're doing. And with that overlap, of course, comes a lot of time that is spent on stuff that maybe you don't need to spend time on. So, and Coke was very deliberate about this, ensuring that you're using your time well. So we had a conference in South Africa called Work That Matters, where the theme was Work That Matters. But for me, as I was approaching 40, that work that matters in my head changed to life that matters. So I started thinking about the things that I'd want to do. And it's things that I'd thought of for a very long time that I always wanted to do. And so it was at that conference in South Africa that I made a decision that I need to leave Coke and pursue my passion projects. So that was towards end of 2017. So December I turned 40. But then by that time, we had already started planning for the World Cup campaign in 2018. So I made a decision that the World Cup campaign would be my last job at Coke.
And at this time, have you verbalized it to anyone?
I started with Monali, but I told Monali unofficially as a friend. Yeah. And it took some time to get her to understand where I was going with it. And of course, it also took some time for me to explain to my wife where I was going with it. But as 2017 was ending, something else happened that we'll come back to that solidified me leaving. So we get into the World Cup trophy campaign, World Cup campaign with Coca-Cola, and a major part of the campaign, because the World Cup was going to take place in June, July, but a precursor to the World Cup was the trophy tour, World Cup trophy tour. And this is where the World Cup trophy is taken round to different countries just to start getting people excited about the World Cup. And this involved getting a fully branded and kitted plane, branded World Cup, trophy tour, Coca-Cola, and it was moving from country to country. So at this point, and now this was such a big project that Alovi also had to be involved in it. So we were working on it, the two of us, plus of course Monali. It was such a big project that, because we're not just dealing with the 30 countries in Africa. No, actually by this time it has expanded, although we were reporting now to South Africa. So South Africa was heading the project while we were handling some countries. The project involved other countries outside of Africa. So this plane has to be planned for to leave the US, go around to the different countries, and then go back to the US. So now we are dealing with the African portion. Now we have to make sure we align all countries to the plan.
And leave Africa on the exact date needed.
Yes. And then now, of course, it also involves, does that country have the budget to pay for this thing? Because the way it's structured is every country has to pay for this trophy tour. Every country has to contribute to the to global. So out of your marketing budget for the year, you have to apportion a certain amount. So do you have that amount? So every country is told this is how much it will cost you. So now you have to check with those countries. Do you have the money? Okay, you have the money. If the plane comes to your country, what are you going to do? Like, what's your plan? So we give them the Bible where we say, when it comes, you do this, you're supposed to do this, you do this, you do this, you have this kind of event, you have this kind of event. So you have to have an event where either the president receives it or you take it to the president. And then you have to have an event for journalists and stakeholders like bottlers, the business community and the likes. And then now you have to have a public event where the public can come in and take photos with it. Now, for Africa, you have to look at the nuances of, you have places, for example, in Ethiopia, you have a president and a prime minister. The prime minister is the big person who everyone knows, but the rules say only the president can touch it. You get? So now
what happens?
So now you have to figure out, how do you go and tell the prime minister who everyone knows that inakam lakini wezi guza.
Yeah, for real.
So lazima tuende kwa president.
What? So what happened in that situation?
You have to make that. So now, in Coca-Cola, there was a department called. It was called what? Public Affairs and something. Like there was a department that was its job. So now for us, luckily we were like, guys, Ethiopia kuna situation, you need to handle, you know. So the different countries where there are such things, like for example, do you remember in 20...
That's not just me. The guy didn't shika that thing. I'm going to Google that one.
But do you remember the World Cup trophy tour for, I think it was 2010. 2010, when it came to Kenya, and we had president and prime minister in Kenya, when Raila was, you remember? And when it came, Kibaki could touch it, but Raila was not allowed to touch it. Do you remember?
Yes.
And it was a very delicate thing to balance. So now imagine that's happening in different countries. Then now imagine there are some countries where some guys don't care, like they want to touch it. You know, the World Cup used to have its own
security.
What's a security? It used to have its own car box that it was stored in. Then there was that security who used to work with it, like that guy. Let me tell you how crazy it is. In each of those countries, you have to go and talk to the airport authorities and tell them how there's a bunch of people coming, but hawaingii migration line yenu na hawapitishi nini e-box kwa hiyo nini scanner yenu. Mtaleta scanner pale. When we land, mtatuma mtu kwa ndege a collect passports, aende passport control, zistampiwe, azirudishe. These guys are not going there. And that box is not going there.
Yes.
You will scan it here. You will scan it, but it will not be opened. You will scan it here.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it will peter. And some of these guys are carrying guns. And you shall not take them.
Thank God it wasn't you doing that.
But you know, you have to facilitate those conversations. You know. You have to facilitate.
So this is your work.
Yeah, it's our work now. But now, of course, now you're
with the whole team.
You're with the whole team. But you have to be the one to identify and plan for the meetings. So you talk to this. Now, the beauty about the Coca-Cola system is there was always there's someone in charge of security in a big way.
Yes.
Now, luckily, the one at Coke is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, is a former cop.
Oh, okay.
So he knows his way around.
Yeah.
So for him, it was phone calls.
Yeah.
And So you have to do that in each country, and you have to make sure now they follow those protocols. You have, as in down to the plane when it comes in, where it's going to park at the airport. They're the charges that you pay at the airport. There was something about, and I remember this was such a big deal, because it was down to hours. When the plane parks, you have to connect power to the plane from some power point in the airport. There's a cost to that. There's booking it, and you have to know how long you're booking it for. And then you're telling airport guys, you can't touch this plane. So then we put our own security even there. So now you're telling airport guys, we are bringing security for the plane. So you know, there are a lot of cogs in the wheel that you have to.
And then these are across African countries with egos.
Yes.
That must have been heavy.
And then even telling, like, let me give you another example. You've taken a flight from Terminal 2 at JKIA, local flights, like is it Fly 540 ama East African? Terminal 2, where you don't go to the main JKIA, you go to this other one huku hivi. So now, convincing the airport guys that this flight, even if it's an international flight, it'll land huku, because huku, number one, has less traffic of planes. Number two, it has less logistics to the point where you can allow a whole multitude of people onto the runway, because we have to receive the plane, we have to do the water salute. We have to do a press conference right at the plane, because we have to use the plane as the backdrop. Yeah. So there were all those things. Now, one of the things about the campaign, and remember the way I told you, at that point, because the brand already knows that you're a fan of football, so there's nothing we are telling you, but we are trying to get everyone else excited about. I can't remember the name of the campaign, but it was, the important thing to remember is this was a global campaign. Yes. So it's a global campaign, but then when we executed it in Kenya, some blog said Faki and Alovi got their girlfriends and friends to be on the trophy tour. In fact, and remember, see, I've told you that I'd already made a decision that this would be my last job. So I left immediately after. But that blog said I was fired because of that thing, because of putting my friends and my niece there. So the campaign was to get other people outside the normal football fan to get excited about football. So the global campaign was to get influencers, personalities to get into this. So in each country, there was a Betty Chalo on that plane. There was a Wanjiro on that plane. There was a Farhan on that plane. You know the people, there was a Ramsey on that plane. You know the people who now we used in Kenya? Yes. There were similar people in those countries. And so that you know, it was not a Faki decision. This comes as a brief from global. Then you sit with your agency. At that time, there's Scanad, there's Ogilvy, there's a digital agency, all those people. We say, this is the brief that has come from global, because this is the campaign. These are the people who we need to. So who are these people
who are here?
So the digital agency brings the list. And when they bring the list, they bring to something we used to call agency council. Agency council was a weekly meeting where all the agencies doing things for Coca-Cola would sit together every week to go through all the projects that we are doing. So at the agency council, digital agency brings this list of people, and the whole agency council go through this list and say, and the digital team now is justifying why so and so, why so and so. If someone else within the agency council doesn't feel this person and they justify, you remove and replace, you know. So by the time this list gets to Coca-Cola, to us, it's agency who've told us. Then now for us, we'll have our legal go through the list. They do their own check. My point being, none of the people in that list was suggested by Faki or Alovi or Monali.
So that's what these guys wrote about you.
They wrote that. We put our friends and girlfriends in that list. And in fact, that's why I was fired from Coca-Cola.
Hey bro, you've been reading the wrong blogs, man. I didn't even know this story.
Imagine. No, it's one blogger.
Okay.
It's one blogger, but it's okay. It's okay. It's the same person who said I used to give Mosound work. And funny enough, that was the first job I did with Mosound. Because Mosound were the ones who were chosen to do the trophy tour. And the reason why Mosound were even chosen to do the trophy tour is because in 2010, they're the ones who did it. And we had pitched the job to many people. So I wasn't in the decision-making room, but a number of agencies pitched and they won.
But I think, in fact, it's a good thing you've brought up this story because this is the rubbish that comes with success or with comes with rising up the ranks. There's a couple, and I won't, of course, mention names. As a digital agency, there's a lot of, FOAB Digital now, there's a lot of prominent people we worked with as from an advisory point. Even some of them, I still work with them from an advisory point, from a PR perspective. Because bloggers would just start writing stories. So now I would advise them, what do you do? This person written about this is not true. Some of them are just be like, don't say a thing, because they want you to say something. Some of them would be like, counter it by doing this. So you started getting, now this shows that you're rising up the ranks. You're in what I call a position of power to somebody who's looking to make a few bucks. Did it affect you?
No, let me tell you why it didn't affect me. The beauty of Coca-Cola, again, with the power of the agencies, was such that when those two stories were coming out, each time there were people in the digital agency monitoring, because of course they have to monitor because Coca-Cola is mentioned. So they were monitoring to the point where I was even asked, do you want to take action? Like, let me tell you how I felt when the company was updating me about it or was telling me about it. The HR team was telling me about it. I felt like, and I know it sounds odd or unrealistic, but I felt like the company was feeling sorry because I had been dragged in their affairs. So they were like, okay, the sentiment is, it's not so good today, but we hope tomorrow it won't, you know. Paka, they're asking me, do you want to respond? Do you want us to respond? So I was like, no, just let it go. It's a blog that does that kind of thing, so it's fine.
Okay. I know who you're talking about when you said that. I know him.
Yeah. So it in fact, most of the calls I was getting were from people telling me, Kwani, these guys don't know how these things work. You know, like these guys think such a big company can do such things. You know, so it was fine. How
was the event though? Now once the World Cup.
Event was amazing.
I
met Gabantu. I met Gabantu at that event because they were doing the
live stream.
And hey, at some point I even got annoyed with them. I shouted at them, but Gabantu is such a cool guy. Like either he doesn't remember, or he brushed it off like this is work. It's not personal, you know. But it was an amazing event. You know, when the trophy comes in, you know, even just learning how to set up, like the setup we're doing. So let me give you an example. So the way the setup is, you set it up at an event where you have different activities happening, even a concert and all, and then entry to the place, because we did it at KICC, the grounds. So entry to the event is you buy a Coke.
Yep.
So you buy a Coke, you can go into whatever different experiential activations are happening. You can go to the concert. Then there was a line for taking photos with the trophy. And the way the setup was done was such that it was a huge room and then divided into 4. And it's divided into 4 in such a way that at the intersection of that division is where you place the trophy. So what that does is, because now you have 4 sides, one side can be used by VIPs to take photos. Another 2 sides can be used by the public to take photos. Then this side always has a security guy.
Yeah.
And the security guy never leaves.
He never left, eh?
But if you push, the security guy takes the trophy, puts it in the case, and goes.
Oh.
And until he's satisfied that you've calmed down, then he doesn't come back.
So did that happen?
Yeah, it happened.
The guy just packed.
Because, you know, now there were so many people, and time was running. So people were anxious to get their photos because they're imagining at some point you'll close down. It was taken away. So for like 1 hour, we didn't have the trophy.
So you just made an announcement?
Yeah, you just make an announcement, you tell guys to calm down, Nini. And guys listened, guys pangaed line, trophy was brought back.
So you were only in Kenya, you only saw this in Kenya?
No. So now, so here's the thing. And
did you go to Prezos?
And this is yeah. So what happened, this is where now a huge chunk of the problem with the blog came. The plan for each country was, so Alovi and I were managing the activations for Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. So we divided, where I did Kenya and Ethiopia, he did Uganda and Mozambique. So I can't remember the routes that the plane took, but I remember before Kenya, it was in Ethiopia. So not only did I have to be in Ethiopia for that, the way it is, because the influencers who you've picked, the idea is they're bringing the trophy to Kenya.
Okay, I get.
So you book a one-way
for them
to so this time we went to Ethiopia with all of them, one way. We spent a night, and then now we got onto the trophy plane
and you bring to Kenya.
To bring to Kenya. So I did Ethiopia and Kenya.
Okay. Kadi meja. Let's transfer some, we'll be back.